How's it going, Dora?
I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, I've been exploring sort of intentions lately with students, and it's always really interesting because especially even during any practice, it's just natural to bring in an intention, whether or not I'm suggesting one because there's a theme, and then always letting them just come up with whatever is resonating for them in that moment. But it's such an interesting thing to start with an intention because even with teaching, I might not call it an intention, but it might be more like a goal, in their agenda books for students, right? Because being a teacher, I feel sometimes a lot of the iRest, integrated restoration practices, serve well in any sort of avenue of life. So with teaching, it might be called, what's your goal for the day? But really, I guess I'm asking, like, what's your intention to kind of ground them into the day? So is it whatever it is it even just being open minded today, or maybe being really listening attentively, or maybe speaking more respectfully, or even getting your work done? It can be very practical. But it's interesting. You can really start life, any part of life, with an intention. Do you find that as well for you or your students?
Yeah, I mean, like in most yoga practices, we start with a sankalpa, which is an intention, right? Um, Definitely intention is really important because from the lens of the iRest practice, we set an intention because especially in this day and age, our attention gets so scattered, right? There are so many distractions, and we're here, we're there, and then many of us find it hard to stay focused for very long. And when we set an intention, then what we're really doing is we're focusing our energy and our attention to this thing that we want to achieve. What, like you say, it might be a goal. And so every time our mind gets pulled away or gets distracted, when we set a strong intention, I see it as an anchor that's, you can't really drift too far away because now you're pulled back to say, hang on a minute, what was I doing? Oh, here's my intention. And so I find it really, really interesting, especially on days where I feel like I have, say, the whole day to accomplish maybe a few things. But when I don't set an intention to do those things, I get pulled in so many directions. And then I'm, over here for a little while, I'm over there for a little while. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, did I even get anything done? Like, did I get any of the things that I wanted to get done? Whereas when I actually have a list and my intention is I'm going to complete this list today, I find that anytime I get pulled away, it reminds me, well, why am I here? What was my list again? And then I come back to the list. And then so I think setting a strong intention is really helpful for us to really gather our attention in a sort of one pointed manner so that we can actually focus our attention and energy on what we want to do. And this is why setting an intention is so important in helping us get to where we want to go. Because without that, not that it can't be done, we tend to procrastinate, we tend to get pulled in different directions, we get distracted, and then we don't even know that we've been pulled away and distracted, right? Because there's nothing to return to. There's not an intention that brings us back to, oh, hang on a minute, this is where you're going, right? So yeah, I think intention is definitely a really important practice, especially if you want to get things done, if you have a goal that you want to achieve.
I love looking because I'm a list person as well. So it's really cool to see, yeah, writing whatever it is, feed the plants, vacuum. So it doesn't always have to be like a deep intention for a huge change, in life. It can be vacuum, that can be your intention, and it feels great. There's I know there's some research behind like putting that check mark on things, feeling that, and even doing the opposite when I sometimes feel like, oh gosh, I didn't do everything. But when I actually write down, go back and see what I actually accomplished, because there were just so many things and I can check them off, there is this, there's a sensation that we feel. And then I guess we, naturally want to keep feeling that, or the body wants to support us in accomplishing our intentions. So yeah, I love the idea that even writing our list down is an intention. So that's beautiful. Yeah.
Hmm. And writing a list is great because it frees up your mental energy. Because we spend a lot of mental energy trying to hold on to the things of, oh, I need to do this and then I need to do that. And then we don't realize it. But then the more energy that kind of goes on to holding on to all the things we need to do, there's less energy for us to actually then um, for us to actually accomplish the things because we're so, already mentally drained from holding on to all of the things that we think we need to do. So writing down a physical list, whether it be on your phone or on a piece of paper, you let go of all that energy, can release those energies so that you can now use them for, in other ways. And that's really important, or helpful actually for me. But also, when you have that list written down and then you have this one intention of coming back to the list and checking off the list, now again, you focus your energy towards something. Whereas when you're just holding on to a bunch of things that you think you need to do, but there's no intention to say, oh, I'm going to get this done, or that is just, there's just a feeling of, oh, I have a lot I need to get done and I'm overwhelmed. Um, I find that you might actually get to a place where you don't do any of those things because you're overwhelmed, because you don't even know where to start, right? So intentions could even just be a way to clear up that mental clutter and start to put things down in a to have something concrete so that your mind's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And so that clarity brings a sense of ease in the body and mind, right? Even if you have a long list of things to do, you have them say written down and say, oh, my intention is to do the first 5 things on the list. Now it's not 100 things, it's 5 things, and you can focus your energy on completing those 5 things in a day rather than holding on to all of these things of, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I've got so much to do and I don't know where to start. Right. So I think that intention's really wonderful to help us to get focus on things that we need to accomplish. And because there are always going to be, 100 things or 1,000 things that we want to do or need to do. But we only have so much energy and time in a day to accomplish them. So when we start to, I think intentions helps us to even prioritize, well, what is it that I want to do today? Or even in our practice, what is it that what do I intend for my practice today? Instead of getting so complicated about, oh my gosh, these are all the things I should do, need to do, this is what I want to feel, I need to feel. Like, it's like, no, let's simplify. What is it you need to do right now? What is it you need to do today? Or what is it you need to do this week? Right? And then now we can just focus our energy on that thing and let go of all the other things for a while until we plan for the next one and the next one.
You make me think of, so just like lists can be an intention, you make me think of, the practice of, which really works for me, is the physical intention, I guess it is. So preparing for the next day, I'll have my lunch box out, so I see it right away. So I remember to pack the lunch inside it. And then if I know I might want to work out or something, I'll have my running shoes and like my towel and everything together, the yoga mat, whatever I need. So it's there. So I can see it. I don't have to think about it, or, you know, everything's physically set out, even my clothing. And I would teach this to my students, but it's lovely to think of it as an intention. It's a living intention. So you set your intention, your backpack's all packed, your clothing's set up, your food is set up, maybe even healthier snacks are set up. So everything's in place. So if your intention is to follow through all those things, physically setting them up makes it even easier, like you said. So you don't have to think about anything. Maybe the night before, when you're a little bit more awake, it's all set up. So when it's morning, you're not rushing around finding everything. It's there. And when you're, maybe you're not as ready or awake, you don't have to think. You can just pick everything up and remember, like, oh, yeah, I was going to work out. I was going to pack my lunch and do each of the things. So that's, yeah, intentions.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing that I would say about intentions is that sometimes we can get really caught up about the goals that we want to set, and we don't question why we're doing something. And I think while we just talked about how important intentions can be to help us realize our goals, I find that the energy behind an intention is even more important as to why, as to the what that you're doing. It's like, well, why? Why are you doing this? Because that's a really interesting question. When you want to do something and you ask yourself why you're doing it, it tells you a lot about yourself. It tells you a lot about your fears, your insecurities, and where you're at in terms of your outlook of life, or, right? And so when, I always use the example to my students that, for instance, if my intention is to eat healthier, this could be, it sounds like a wonderful intention. Why not, right? If we all want to live a healthy life. And so eating, you know, eating healthier is a great way for us to help our bodies be healthier, right? But even that, we can just get lost in that intention and goes, okay, I'm just going to make these changes in my life. But the interesting question is, well, why do you want to do this? Right? And if I'm coming from the point of view of, well, I hate the way I look, and so I'm going to eat healthier so that I can look a certain way. Well, the energy behind that is really coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of insecurity. And even though the intention may sound good to eat healthier, what we're really doing is we're feeding back into the energy of fear and insecurity. And so that cycle is going to continue. And even as you were to eat healthier and perhaps achieve, physical appearance that you like, the fear and insecurity is still there. It's just going to need a different outlet to express itself. So nothing's actually really changed, and you're not going to be satisfied once you accomplish your goal, at least not for long anyway, because the underlying fear and insecurities are still there. They were not addressed. And so when it comes to intention setting, what I really love about the iRest protocol is that it's not just about setting an intention. The sankalpa is broken down into the three parts where we tap into our inner resource. So we're coming to a place of feeling that inner peace within ourselves. So hopefully, as we think about intentions, we're going to be coming from a more grounded place, right? Not so much from a place of fear, or even if we recognize that there's fear, we are grounded enough to recognize that there's fear. We're not just fused with the fear, right? So the inner resource is wonderful. So you might even, for the listeners who might be listening, we have an episode on inner resource. So you might want to check that out. And then the other part of the Sankalpa from the iRest perspective is heartfelt desire. And heartfelt desire is really asking us, well, what is my purpose in life? What is my life intention? And from that place of my life purpose or my dharma, what are some intentions that I can set that's going to be supportive of that? And so now we're really encouraging the person setting the intention to come from that place of groundedness, to come from a place of love that, of life living through you. What are the intentions that want to arise from that place? So instead of coming from a place of fear and insecurity, when we come from a place of love and wholeness, well, then what are the intentions can you set for yourself now? And then, so it might still be, I want to eat healthier, right? Could be the same intention, but the driving force behind it is, oh, because I love myself and I need to care for my body so that I continue to enjoy and experience life fully, right? And that's a very different energy behind that intention, even though the intentions, were the same. And so I think that that would be I guess maybe even the part that we start with first. Why are you doing it? And then let's then create intentions that are going to be helpful to focus your energy so that you can achieve your goal.
Interesting. You're actually making me think of a conversation I had with a friend. Um, as her teenagers are navigating this, right? And I remember also, being a teenager and you have so many things. You've got your academics, you've got your after school sports, you've got all the different commitments. And maybe you haven't had enough experience yet of how to manage all of that, right? Because as we're older now and we've had many opportunities to manage those kinds of things. And we can maybe more easily say like no to a friend, right? And we know they might be angry with us and they're allowed to be angry and that's okay, right? I have to be okay with them being angry at me, but I just can't fit 50 things. But with some of these teenagers, like my friend was talking about, she's still learning. So she doesn't want to disappoint this friend by not going to do this thing, but she also has to study for an exam. And then she's also got to go to practice. So she's got to pick, what is actually urgent out of all of those. And, needing to realize, I'm graduating. I actually need to do my academics. I want to graduate. And, my friend may be angry at me as she rightfully can be, right? And that's okay, though. She's not going to disown you as a friend. You know that in your heart, but just learning to, juggle all that. What's your intention? And then being okay with other people's intention. We don't know what that other person's intention was, maybe for connection. And so, yeah, being able to feel your way and feel that inner resource so that you feel supported and then that right action comes out. And in this case, it sounds like the teenager just really needed to study for that exam. So, and be okay with everything else falling away.
Yeah, and I think that, setting intentions it's something that we shouldn't do just so lightly. Especially with even like with New Year's resolutions and other things, people are just like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and there can be a lot of excitement around it. Oftentimes, we create these, grandiose resolutions because we heard an inspiring talk or there's something that happened to us, and there's all this energy behind it. But from the iRest perspective, we're actually saying, let's go small, let's take it baby steps, right? It's more important that we create that sense of consistency and self-trust in knowing that we can accomplish our intentions than just keep setting big intentions that we never fulfill. And so I think that, yeah, like there's a lot we can talk about with intentions, but maybe we start thinking about intentions as things that, as a contract that we make to ourselves, instead of just thinking, oh, I'll just do this and then it's okay if I break it. Can we start maybe changing our way of thinking around intentions, that if I'm going to make this promise to myself or this commitment or this contract with myself, that I'm going to do everything I can to fulfill this commitment. So I better make sure that whatever goals I'm setting are reasonable. I'm not going to start saying that I'm going to say, I'm new to yoga and I'm going to practice 1 hour every day. Like that's not really going to happen realistically. Maybe you'll make it happen for a month or maybe two, but then it's not going to be something that you'll continue to keep up. So what is something that you can actually do realistically, even on your most unmotivated days? And then you can build on that, as we continue. Because I think it is really important for us to start to cultivate a good relationship with ourselves. And it starts with, keeping your promises to yourself. I said this to my students once, and that is, imagine you had a friend who promises you all these things that they would do, and every single time they break their promise. Like, what would your relationship be with that friend? Would that person still be your friend, right? And so, why is it okay for us to do that to ourselves? What kind of relationship are we cultivating when we keep breaking promises to ourselves?
I think that's a great practice. I think that'll be a really wonderful sort of suggestion for people to follow, to make that intention meaningful. And I love how you said that. It's true. We often ourselves might not be the first person on the list and we don't book ourselves in our calendars. Everything else is booked except time for ourselves sometimes. So I love that. I think that's a great example. And I was just thinking, I guess also on top of that, yeah, maybe boundaries was making me think as you're talking. So as the person practices making this contract with themselves, and this promise to themselves, just like they would to anybody else that they cared for, maybe being okay with setting boundaries. So setting boundaries with others, and being okay with that, or learning to be okay at least, that we need to set boundaries in order for those contracts to happen. And, boundaries of time, boundaries with children, with everything, in order to allow that intention to manifest fully. So perhaps we'll see what people come up with. Maybe they have some intentions, and how they go about allowing them to fully be realized. And it'd be great to see what people share.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. See you next time.